Section 41 of Anatomy of the Human Body, Part 4. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Anatomy of the Human Body by Henry Gray, Part 4. The Sacral and Coccygeal Nerves. Nervi sacralis and coccygeus. The anterior divisions of the sacral and coccygeal nerves, rami anteriores, form the sacral and pudendal plexuses. The anterior divisions of the upper four sacral nerves enter the pelvis through the anterior sacral foramina, that of the fifth between the sacrum and coccyx, while that of the coccygeal nerve curves forward below the rudimentary transverse process of the first piece of the coccyx. The first and second sacral nerves are large. The third, fourth, and fifth diminish progressively from above downward. Each receives a gray ramus communicans from the corresponding ganglion of the sympathetic trunk, while from the third and frequently from the second and the fourth sacral nerves, a white ramus communicans is given to the pelvic plexuses of the sympathetic. The sacral plexus, plexus sacralis. The sacral plexus is formed by the lumbosacral trunk, the anterior division of the first, and portions of the anterior divisions of the second and third sacral nerves. The lumbosacral trunk comprises the whole of the anterior division of the fifth and a part of that of the fourth lumbar nerve. It appears at the medial margin of the psoas major and runs downward over the pelvic brim to form the first sacral nerve. The anterior division of the third sacral nerve divides into an upper and a lower branch, the former entering the sacral and the latter the pudendal plexus. The nerves forming the sacral plexus converge toward the lower part of the greater sciatic foramen and unite to form a flattened band, from the anterior and posterior surfaces of which several branches arise. The band itself is continued as the sciatic nerve, which splits on the back of the thigh into the tibial and common peroneal nerves. These two nerves sometimes arise separately from the plexus, and in all cases their independence can be shown by dissection. Relation. The sacral plexus lies on the back of the pelvis between the piriformis and the pelvic fascia. In front of it are the hypogastric vessels, the ureter, and the sigmoid colon. The superior gluteal vessels run between the lumbosacral trunk and the first sacral nerve, and the inferior gluteal vessels between the second and third sacral nerves. All the nerves entering the plexus, with the exception of the third sacral, split into ventral and dorsal divisions, and the nerves arising from these are as follows. Nerve to quadratus femoris and gemellus inferior, ventral divisions, fourth and fifth lumbar, first sacral. Nerve to obturator internus and gemellus superior, ventral divisions, fifth lumbar, first and second sacral. Nerve to piriformis, dorsal divisions, first, second sacral. Superior gluteal, dorsal divisions, fourth and fifth lumbar, first sacral. Inferior gluteal, dorsal divisions, fifth lumbar, first and second sacral. Posterior femorocutaneous, ventral divisions, second and third sacral, dorsal divisions, first and second sacral. Sciatic, tibial, ventral divisions, fourth and fifth lumbar, first, second, and third sacral. Common peroneal, dorsal divisions, fourth and fifth lumbar, first and second sacral. The nerve to the quadratus femoris and gemellus inferior arises from the ventral divisions of the fourth and fifth lumbar and first sacral nerves. It leaves the pelvis through the greater sciatic foramen, below the piriformis, and runs down in front of the sciatic nerve, the gemelli, and the tendon of the obturator internus, and enters the anterior surfaces of the muscles. It gives an articular branch to the hip joint. The nerve to the obturator internus and gemellus superior arises from the ventral divisions of the fifth lumbar and first and second sacral nerves. It leaves the pelvis through the greater sciatic foramen, below the piriformis, and gives off the branch to the gemellus superior, which enters the upper part of the posterior surface of the muscle. It then crosses the ischial spine, re-enters the pelvis through the lesser sciatic foramen, and pierces the pelvic surface of the obturator internus. The nerve to the piriformis arises from the dorsal division of the second sacral nerve, or the dorsal divisions of the first and second sacral nerves, and enters the anterior surface of the muscle. This nerve may be double. The superior gluteal nerve, nervus gluteus superior, arises from the dorsal divisions of the fourth and fifth lumbar and first sacral nerves. It leaves the pelvis through the greater sciatic foramen above the piriformis, accompanied by the superior gluteal vessels, and divides into a superior and an inferior branch. The superior branch accompanies the upper branch of the deep division of the superior gluteal artery and ends in the gluteus minimus. The inferior branch runs with the lower branch of the deep division of the superior gluteal artery across the gluteus minimus. It gives filaments to the gluteae medius and minimus, and ends in the tensor fasciae lati. The inferior gluteal nerve, nervus gluteus inferior, arises from the dorsal divisions of the fifth lumbar and first and second sacral nerves. It leaves the pelvis through the greater sciatic foramen, below the piriformis, and divides into branches which enter the deep surface of the gluteus maximus. The posterior femoral cutaneous nerve, nervus cutaneus femoralis posterior, small sciatic nerve, is distributed to the skin of the perineum and the posterior surface of the thigh and leg. It arises partly from the dorsal divisions of the first and second, and from the ventral divisions of the second and third sacral nerves, and issues from the pelvis through the greater sciatic foramen, below the piriformis. It then descends beneath the gluteus maximus with the inferior gluteal artery, and runs down the back of the thigh beneath the fascia lata, and over the long head of the biceps femoris to the back of the knee. Here it pierces the deep fascia and accompanies the small saphenous vein to about the middle of the back of the leg, its terminal twigs communicating with the sural nerve. Its branches are all cutaneous and are distributed to the gluteal region, the perineum, and the back of the thigh and leg. The gluteal branches, nervi cluneum inferioris, 3 or 4 in number, turn upward around the lower border of the gluteus maximus, and supply the skin covering the lower and lateral part of that muscle. The perineal branches, rami perinealis, are distributed to the skin at the upper and medial side of the thigh. One long perineal branch, inferior pudental, long scrotal nerve, curves forward below and in front of the ischial tuberosity, pierces the fascia lata, and runs forward beneath the superficial fascia of the perineum to the skin of the scrotum in the male, and of the labium majus in the female. It communicates with the inferior hemorrhoidal and posterior scrotal nerves. The branches to the back of the thigh and leg consist of numerous filaments derived from both sides of the nerve and distributed to the skin covering the back and medial side of the thigh, the popliteal fossa, and the upper part of the back of the leg. The sciatic, nervus ischiadicus, great sciatic nerve, supplies nearly the whole of the skin of the leg, the muscles of the back of the thigh, and those of the leg and foot. It is the largest nerve in the body, measuring 2 centimeters in breadth, and is the continuation of the flattened band of the sacral plexus. It passes out of the pelvis through the greater sciatic foramen, below the piriformis muscle. It descends between the greater trochanter of the femur and the tuberosity of the ischium, and along the back of the thigh to about its lower third, where it divides into 2 large branches, the tibial and common perineal nerves. This division may take place at any point between the sacral plexus and the lower third of the thigh. When it occurs at the plexus, the common perineal nerve usually pierces the piriformis. In the upper part of its course, the nerve rests upon the posterior surface of the ischium, the nerve to the quadratus femoris, the obturator internus and gemelli, and the quadratus femoris. It is accompanied by the posterior femoral cutaneous nerve and the inferior gluteal artery, and is covered by the gluteus maximus. Lower down it lies upon the adductor magnus and is crossed obliquely by the long head of the biceps femoris. The nerve gives off articular and muscular branches. The articular branches, rami articulares, arise from the upper part of the nerve and supply the hip joint, perforating the posterior part of its capsule. They are sometimes derived from the sacral